right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Danner.
Yeah, or a couple of them, just put them in rotation.
DJ Danner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs that look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males
Psych. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter. Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
and the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African, and the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100.
Can't knock the hustle.
Come on, fuck them. Things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday. Happy birthday to me, Jew boy. I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are black. Africans are back.
Come on. Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Back.
What's up? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the fun half of the Majority Report. I guess really the only half of the Majority Report today. This is the Majority Report today. Emma is out sick. If you view our Twitter account on the tweet on the situation, you'll know that she has a stomach bug, a little TMI from whoever wrote that. Don't need to exactly know, but Emma, hope you're doing okay, and we'll welcome you back when you're feeling better. And got with me, of course, I'm Matt Binder. With me, the wonderful Brandon Sutton, and of course,
thank you,
Matt Leck and Bradley.
Hello.
And I'm hanging out with the boys.
Yeah, it's the boys today, right? We'll be getting sushi afterwards.
Doing a kickflip, multiple kickflips.
So let's start. We have a bunch of sound. We might take a few calls. Let's start with, you guys were talking about something you guys wanted to start with. Brandon, why don't you kick us off? Brandon?
Oh, me? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, didn't you? Weren't we talking right before what we should start
let's do the Elon stuff.
Yeah, that's what I couldn't remember what we were talking about.
I didn't realize you wanted me to.
Let's do Elon. Let's talk about Elon.
Yeah, let's talk about Elon. So Elon Musk. Everyone remember him? Things have been a little bit quiet around him, honestly, lately in the past couple, not really that long term. But like for the past few days, maybe a week or two, he hasn't really been on the forefront of everyone's mind. He's been laying low until last night he decided to come out with a real whopper. And by whopper, I mean endorsement of an insane white supremacist conspiracy theory, basically giving his thumbs up to the Great Replacement theory that's pushed by some of the most virulent white supremacists and neo-Nazis out there, period. I mean, this is really odious stuff. Why don't you pull
you can find things Hitler wrote that are very similar to this, and maybe I will actually. I'll look that up.
And so the context for the tweet that he responds to, this guy who's known as the artist formerly known as Eric, a verified account here. He's responding to a guy who tweeted a video from like a Stop Anti-Semitism ad campaign, where like a dad is talking to his kid about like, I saw that you posted something like Hitler was right. Like, go into that synagogue and tell them yourself. If you want, like you want to hide behind your keyboard, go into that synagogue and say Hitler was right. And it was like 700,000 people post Hitler was right every day, like stop anti-Semitism. And this is what this tweet that Elon responded to is in response to.
Wait, can we show the tweet? That I don't.
Yeah, do you want to understand? I'm sorry. Do you want to? We can watch the video. Let's watch the video. But
yeah, I don't want people to think this is like some sort of mealy mouth, like the dude in this case, Elon Musk, literally came out and said, yeah, exactly this. Like there's no parsing words here.
Okay, so the original, just to clarify, I don't know if you need to watch the video, but so this person is saying like a lot of people are coming out anonymously and saying Hitler was right. I haven't seen a lot of that, but I do think like if they are doing that, Elon Musk's Twitter is not attentive to it. I think there's definitely been a rise of anti-Semitism and that sort of sentiment since Elon taken over. I think that's fair to say. And, you know, I think saying Hitler was right after October 7th is obviously repugnant and disgusting.
I mean, also Hitler was right is a right-wing dog whistle. Like, let's make that clear because of the times we're in right now. And people, because of what's going on in Israel and in Gaza, we should be clear that the phrase "Hitler was right" is a right-wing meme. This isn't like some sort of. This is.
I mean, it's literally just it's pro-Hitler. I mean, right?
No, but the wording of it, because like you wouldn't just come out and say like Hitler was right unless you agreed with it. But also, it's a meme among right-wingers to signal to each other that they're sort of like in on the deal.
It's like a chance. It's chance speak. You know,
yeah, it's like
people
pithy almost.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yes.
Gotcha. So yeah, we can go to this guy, the tweet that Elon was responding to. So yeah, this dumbass. He says, "Okay, Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of dialectical hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them." You scroll up, Bradley. I'm deeply disinterested in giving the tiniest shit now about Western Jewish populations, coming to the disturbing realization that those hordes of minorities that support flooding their country don't exactly like them too much. You want truth said to your face? There it is. And Elon Musk, the owner of this website, with 5.1 million views, says, you have said the actual truth. And he continues, the ADL unjustly attacks the majority of the West, despite the majority of the West supporting the Jewish people and Israel. This is because they cannot, by their own tenets, criticize the minority groups who are their primary threat, which is news to me that ADL can't criticize minority groups. It is not right and needs to stop. I mean, insane.
Right. I mean, we should also say that his further explanation, which doesn't quite help him, but that didn't come until a little while later when he was getting called out. You literally, that when he says like this, exactly this, you had, you want to talk about hordes of people in his mentions cheering it on, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, basically giving Elon props for basically saying what they believe or endorsing what they believe in that first tweet. And then in the second one, he basically says without any, no, don't get me wrong. This is exactly what I think. He's making it quite clear.
And this is all in response to being asked not to say Hitler is right online.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
but we should also be explicit here and talk about why they're talking about this now. And that's because they view, look at these brown people, these Arabs, these Muslims defending the Palestinian cause. and there is obvious people being on different sides here, and to Elon and the white supremacists, they don't view they view it very black and white. They don't view it like, oh, there are Jewish groups supporting this side and there's Arabs who support that side, and it doesn't line up exactly into their West versus the world worldview, which is primarily a very white supremacist idea as well. So they're basically saying that because what's going on now, Jewish people brought it upon themselves because Jewish people support historically civil rights for black people, for example. And now you see a lot of black activists standing up for Palestinians. So this is the white supremacists saying, oh, look, you supported them and now they don't support you here, which again is not accurate altogether whatsoever. But this is their black and white worldview.
It's an insane collapse.
And this is what they're saying.
It's an insane. It's the same collapse of Israel and Jewish people that Candace Owens is doing as well, which is like, Jewish people participate in civil rights. Great. The influence of Israel as a nation is not one of spreading CRT. Like, look at how they treated the new historians, Ilan Pappy and Avi Shlaim, in the 2000s, right? And the war on terror and the influence, that influence of the Muslims as just pathologically driven by sort of Quranic terror and hate, as opposed to situating these things in historical context. That's the influence. It's not look at all let's do wokeism and diversity and stuff.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I also interpreted it. I also interpreted it to mean, the classic, like you were saying, white supremacist talking points that Jewish people control our society and are flooding,
right.
Are trying to win the demographic wars by flooding the country with black and brown people in order to weaken white Western society.
It is literally both. They're obviously using their old tropes and conspiracy theories, the Great Replacement theory, and they're basically finagling it into the current context on Israel and Palestine. In order to, because they see an opportunity. That's, if you see, there's a lot of white supremacists playing both sides here. You see a lot of them weaponizing the pro-Palestinian cause, and then you see a lot of them cheering on Israel with anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim rhetoric. I mean, they're clearly using this to try to bring in people to their ranks.
Well, for the unsavvy white supremacists, it's a real Sophie's Choice, real two-button meme, because on one side you have support ethnic cleansing of brown people, and on the other side you have be anti-Semitic. And so, you have they have a hard time deciding exactly which one they want to do. Christian evangelicals have an easy time because they can do both they're able to do both at the same time. But I think your average groiped up 19-year-old online is just so used to posting Hitler memes that they can't really help themselves.
Right. And of course, this is endorsed by the one of the most powerful people in the world. I mean, who has countless government contracts, countless major investors, big banks who are funding his various endeavors, like X, aka Twitter. He runs one of the largest, or at least one of the most influential in the news and media space, social media platforms in the world. He's the CEO of one of the major car companies. He's the CEO of one of the space exploration company, who's sending out multiple satellites all over the surrounding Earth. I mean, this is a guy with immense power. And I think, the idea that this is what we shouldn't be focused on if we're going to be picking and choosing what we go after when it comes to hate speech and anti-Semitism. And instead, we've seen organizations who have been nonstop outing and doxing 18 and 19-year-old college kids. We've seen them completely quiet on this.
He's also a South African born guy who extracted wealth from his family, emerald mine. The degree to which they owned it, or just owned a stake in it, is up for debate. But also never said a word about apartheid until the 90s, when he said, "Not really a good use of my life to enforce it. So I'm going to go make money elsewhere." So I think we are seeing I think the suspicion like can be really like I really suspect Elon is an actual white supremacist. I just think that suspicion is justified. I mean, not least. I mean, this is I think evidence of it.
I mean, yeah, you don't need to be like a card-carrying KKK member to be a white supremacist. Like, that's what a lot of people don't seem to understand. Like, he clearly harbors very specific feelings based on race. I mean, he truly thinks white people are being oppressed by Jews and other minority groups, which is ludicrous. It's just ludicrous, and it's a white supremacist talking point.
It's also hard to imagine somebody who wants to have that many kids but doesn't want to take care of any of them. For the sake of like demographics or like the human race as being anything other than racially motivated, because it's just like not like Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon just loves kids. He just has them to, because he's like trying to win some invisible demographics battle.
But that's the interesting part, I think, about his worldview, which is like in all of his interviews, he always talks about like the, so-called woke mind virus being like a existential threat in terms of like that it could be like a force to wipe out a certain subsection of the population, which is also, and then he combines that also with like in the Rogan interview he did recently, he was talking about that guy that like antinatalist guy that was profiled in the New York Times, and how like he didn't like that person is like pro, people like not procreating anymore, and he's like so offended by that as like an ideology. So it's like it's this like ethno-nationalist argument he sort of makes against wokeness, as in like we need to be almost like an ethno-nationalist to like combat wokeness, while also combined with this messianic thing of like I need to like literally spread my seed around the world to combat it as well.
But he just loves.
Go ahead, Brandon.
I was gonna say the whole anti-wokeness just still seems so like petty, because we know where like it was centered in, at least, which is that they banned Babylon Bee from Twitter.
Literally,
for like,
that's the locust.
That's like the kernel of his anti-woke mentality, was that like at some point people decided that Babylon Bee should be banned from Twitter, and he threw a hissy fit about it, and then he forced himself to buy Twitter. And now they're back, and it's just like, oh, great, who cares? But he's still on this crusade against like the woke mind virus.
Right. Yeah, I mean, people should know that Brandon is also not like embellishing here. If you look at the text messages Elon's text messages that were released as part of Twitter's lawsuit when Musk tried to back out of buying the company last year, literally the conversation, the earliest conversation about him acquiring Twitter was his conversation with his ex-wife about the Babylon Bee being banned from Twitter, and she requested that he buy the company in order to bring Babylon Bee back.
It's a scary sign of like where I think this could turn if Israel becomes basically too massively unpopular for right-wing governments to continue humoring. Because, and this is the like awful thing, when Yair Netanyahu is making these alliances with the alt-right sort of like white supremacists and sharing these memes of like George Soros memes, right? Like that's what this is. And ultimately, like those are Nazis, you dumbass. And I just think we're seeing like Candace Owens is realizing like, hey, I'm looking at the poll, and she keeps referencing the poll, and that's really what's driving her. She's not educating herself with anything other than this is looking bad, and my audience doesn't want me to support Israel. And what's her like the ideological space she's in is a fascist one. It's a white supremacist one, and so I mean the anti-Semitism is actually going to be. Despite and all the bullshit we get about it, like conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, actual anti-Semitism is a massive, urgent problem right now.
Yeah, and it has been for a while. It's been on the rise since 2016 at least, is when they started noticing the really big boom in anti-Semitism, or at least it being sort of mask off moments for a lot of anti-Semitic groups, and the rise in hate crimes. And that coincided with Trump's election.
Right.
Right. All right, let's move on to our next story, because I'm sure there'll be plenty more Musk comments to cover in the near future. What do we want to talk about now, fellas, boys?
Well, I mean, speaking of boys, you did mention Candace Owens, and I know she's having a bit of a tiff with
the boys
Ben
over
Shapiro.
at Daily
Let's
Wire.
do some more Twitter beef. we're in the
More
mood
Twitter
already.
beef. Drama alert. Candace Owens versus Ben Shapiro.
What's funny is you do have what you're basically seeing is you're seeing two fascists fight over their fascist perversion of what's actually going on. Like, like, let's be clear here. Candace Owens has seemingly been in a tiff with Ben Shapiro because Candace Owens has been I guess slightly in the pro-Palestine camp based on what's going on. But we should be clear, she's also not, she's not had a complete turnaround or something. She's still using her sort of Christo-fascist world view to promote her takes on what's been happening.
Yeah, I mean, we probably should. I mean, we got deep into this yesterday. She's basically pissed that she wasn't defended and her Jewish colleagues gave her the side eye during like the Kyrie Irving documentary, Kanye West, Jewish doctor, and Hitler should keep it in Germany controversies, none of which have to do with the state of Israel, I would emphasize. And so that's why she's changing her position on that, in addition to like what I said about the polling.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think it does represent, I was going to just say,
ahead,
I think it does represent like an actual schism between this new right, between more of an all-encompassing, like there are Black people, there are Latinos in the Proud Boys, and a more traditional, just like exclusionary form of white supremacy. There are some groups who are trying to make inroads, I think, into like encompassing more of, these sort of like angry white men and other forms of subpopulations that would traditionally be eschewed by ethno-nationalist and racist groups. And people like Candace Owens, ironically, I think is trying to keep I'd say bloodline pure. She's trying to keep these groups like, exclusionary to a lot of these other types, because it does allow her to have this, I think, special place in the hearts of white supremacists. She's the only minority allowed in those circles.
Right. Yeah. I mean, pull up the, so basically Candace Owens tweeted out what was this? Blessed are the peacemakers.
Yeah,
she quoted some sort of.
I love how coy she is, because she keeps, especially on Twitter, she's like, and she's done some segments on this. We've played explicitly, but she'll say like genocides are bad, and like Dave Rubin's like, oh, you like Hamas now, proving they're overly jumpy. But Candace is sort of like I didn't say what I was actually talking about, so you actually proved my point, which is funny, but also a little bit cagey.
Right. So she put out this like a biblical quote. I believe this was right after a short clip went viral of Ben Shapiro at some party speaking out against Candace Owens.
The day after, yeah.
Yeah. So it was clearly in reference to him, even though she's going to claim that it wasn't. But then Ben Shapiro came out and said, if I bother you working at the Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means quit. And I got to say, this says a lot, because if Ben Shapiro did not like what Candace Owens is putting out there so much, he would just fire her. But clearly either he is fine with what's going on here, or he's put himself between a rock and a hard place, and she has some sort of out in her contract, which will cost him a lot of money to fire her. So
that's clearly what it is.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that, but it is possible one of the two. And then Candace Owens replied again, right? Didn't she has a reply to Shapiro as well? No, one that's even worse than that, actually. That's it. Yeah. You are utterly out of line for suggesting that I cannot quote biblical scripture, which is not what Ben Shapiro said. The Bible is not about you. And that one is
right. I mean, now we're getting right into what you're saying
for something. Yeah.
Yeah. And then scroll down. I think she hits him with another reply. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah,
Christ is
zoom
king.
Up a little bit more,
Candace
Bradley.
Owens says.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Christ
so
is king.
yeah, so not like it's not hitting him with like here's like the education I'm getting about the like the Nakba, or the like occupied territories and the conditions under that, or the treatment of people under Gaza. It's this Jewish guy is suppressing me, the Christian.
Right, she's making it about herself, just like Shapiro is making it about himself. It's his personal beef with Candace Owens, who works for his company. How could she do this? And then it's also Candace Owens' personal beef with Ben Shapiro for calling her out for her sort of coded wording and usage of a biblical text.
But I also think it's interesting, Matt, if you want to just put this one back up for a quick second, where the reply where she says, "You have been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now, and we have all had to sit back and allow it, and have all tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotion. But you cross a certain line when you come for scripture and read yourself into it. I will not tolerate it." It's also funny that it's like she's also sort of being like, you've been taking this whole Israel thing a little bit like too far. Like, you've been a little too sensitive about like what's been going on in the region, and I've been really, really trying to be cool about it. And now you're coming for me.
It's facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah,
right.
Facts don't care about your feelings in him.
I mean, again, though, I think another thing to point out here is right here you have two of the most influential political commentator figures. I don't even think it would be fair just to say on the right. These two are absolutely huge, especially Ben Shapiro in the podcast space. He's not like one of the top podcasters on the right. His show is frequently one of the top political podcasts, period. And so here you have two of the biggest political commentators who are right-wing. Basically going back and forth fighting each other with anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. One side is using anti-Semitism, another side is using Islamophobia. And it's like the world is completely silent on this, and everyone would rather take chants from college kids and Jewish activist groups out of context instead of focusing on these two hugely influential figures, just like Elon Musk, with an audience in the millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. And here they are just openly having this battle of this fascism versus fascism battle. And everyone's just like quiet about it. I don't see any media coverage. I don't see any news headlines, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post. What's going on here? Like, it's just ludicrous.
Yeah. Well, we know why. It's because all of the media and our government is, when they say they're concerned with anti-Semitism, what they're actually concerned with is anti-Zionism. And they're not actually and to the extent, like, that's really why they get animated about it. It's a posture.
If any of the people and again, I'm not saying necessarily fully that like a guy like Chuck Schumer or a guy like Hakeem Jeffries doesn't care at all about anti-Semitism, but I will go far enough to say that if John Hagee is at your Israel or broadly your march or your protest against anti-Semitism or your stand with Israel rally that is ostensibly also about combating anti-Semitism.
He's good on Zionism.
And that's
why he's there.
The prioritization is very clearly that if John Hagee is speaking there, the priority is Zionism. It's not combating anti-Semitism.
Exactly.
Well, I think they've been clear about that, especially when you watch all the videos of like cops beating up Jewish students, or like the IDF like pushing down Orthodox Jewish people in Israel.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Although I will say, I think from Candace's point of view, this is just like a power play. I think she's tired of playing second fiddle to all of the men. Like, first she came for Crowder. Now she's been nipping at, at least like snipping at Ben Shapiro for a while now. I think, she's trying to usurp the throne.
Oh yeah, I think she thinks that she's bigger than them now, which might be the case, honestly. And also, she is way more appealing to the new generation of young fascists than the Shapiros and Rubins and the Matt Walshes of the world.
Bro,
like
you
the
look at
Daily
their
Wire.
comments.
All the Daily Wire has that's keeping that cohort, those young Republicans who are like the Groyper Pepe guys. The only thing keeping them there is like the rampant transphobia from like the Matt Walsh types. Like otherwise, they don't agree with like the vast majority of how Shapiro covers things. They see this as like old and lame and sort of like the old neocon way. They are much more into the edgelord, anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic, anti-all immigrants, flat out, that they're not getting enough of from the Daily Wire. That's way more in like the Candace Owens camp. And
I also feel like
she flaunts her her Christian fascism in a way that obviously Ben Shapiro, who's Jewish, can't.
She's also
so
just
that
openly hateful.
gives her another notch in their book.
Yeah, and look at the way. Go ahead, Bradley.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that like I also think it's kind of. I think there's also a real distinct chance that her being like a conservative black woman who is willing to go to these edges and willing to go this far. I think the idea with that is that she appeals not just politically, but also, as you said, Binder, like religiously, but also like culturally to people, because she's also very willing and sort of like literate enough to talk about like pop culture issues in a way that I think like it's probably has more staying power than like Ben Shapiro talking about the lyrics to WAP by like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion. Like she can actually she'll insert that into a pop culture debate that is like way more, I think, convincing than it is for Shapiro to do it. And I think honestly, I'm sure part of her social media presence, because I think this is like was mentioned in a New Yorker profile of her. She's also very much like when she's not doing this, she's also like, oh, I'm a mom, like haha, like classic mom problems, like anyone like know where to get baby formula. It's like it's this tightrope of being like an approachable, like pretty Christian woman while also using that veneer to like carry out some of the most like hateful stuff imaginable through so many different lenses.
Right, it's a great point. I mean, she's the one who has a picture hanging out with Kanye, right? I mean, and they were loving that, right? They were loving that. She knows how to play the cultural instead of attacking the culture like Ben Shapiro does. She tries to weaponize it, and she tries to co-opt it.
Oh yeah, I mean, she got a taste with the Kanye connection. That why would you go the Ben Shapiro route after that, right? Like you get to hang out with Kanye West. Right. Instead, you got a guy like Ben Shapiro's like basketball, and he's only interested in basketball if like there's like a trans person like trying to play it.
Larry Bird was the best basketball player. Nobody else.
Right. Oh yeah. What is he? Wait, he was a Celtics fan born in Los Angeles. Like, literally. Okay, man.
LA born and bred.
Right. Let's not read anything into that.
And became a fucking Celtics fan.
But you look at the comment sections to these things, and Candace has absolutely won. It is not even close, and it is all very unseemly stuff. I mean, occasionally you'll get the thing of like, yeah, why can't we support war in like this, or why can't we oppose war in the traditional sort of libertarian way? But then you'll also see like, Candace, good job not selling out to Ben Shapiro and Dennis Prager. And it's like, I think we know what that means.
All right. You want to play a clip? We got any good clips?
If we want, we can look at how Biden looked yesterday, or we could watch some of the footage from that protest and some of the insane reactions to it as well.
Let's do the protest for Biden.
So let's take a look at this clip that Democratic Majority for Israel, the anti-squad pack, posted from the demonstration outside the DNC headquarters, where they were like, "This, who would ever associate with people like this?" I'll cue it up in 1 second, but this is from that protest from last night at the DNC.
Oh yeah, basically, sorry.
There were a bunch of primarily Jewish activist groups, pro-Palestinian,
Jewish Voice for Peace, right? Like, yeah.
If Not Now, I believe, was there.
If Not Now.
Basically, they held a protest in front of the DNC headquarters. Basically, backs turned to the DNC doors, arms linked, and in front of them, like on the grass in front of the DNC, were candles lit for people who died in Gaza, I assume, and police showed up and removed the protesters, and they were rather violent with them.
Yeah, 90 protesters injured. One protester suffered a concussion from the cops. Police kicked, kneed, and punched nonviolent participants in the vigil. A peaceful protester was hit with bicycles by two different cops. I saw a video of a cop getting smacked by another cop who was lifting up a gate. A peaceful protester, I imagine that was probably logged as like a injury caused by the protest. A peaceful protester was choked and violently handled by 3 to 4 officers at once, thrown into a brick wall and onto the ground on top of stairs, then grabbed, picked up, and thrown. Yeah, and what we see here is like how this gets translated. This is called by, people as a violent protest, but what we actually saw was a cop riot and an immediate escalation into like violence. And we can play some of this now.
Pause it for a second. Pause it really quick. I just want people to really view what's going on here with that video. As you watch this video, you will see cops physically pulling and increasingly getting violent with the protesters. The protesters are resisting by pulling their bodies back, like away from where the cops are trying to pull them. I don't know how else how you even classify this as protesters attacking police when they're partaking in civil disobedience that doesn't involve them even touching the police.
Right. And like violent protests when like the Democratic operatives who are attacking these people disgracefully, calling them violent protesters, what they mean is like they didn't immediately give in to the cops when they said, hey, stop protesting.
I mean, that's civil disobedience. People need to be quite clear. Like, this is what civil disobedience is.
Yeah.
Is it against the law? Will people be arrested? Yeah, that's what civil disobedience is, but it doesn't mean they got violent. Blocking a street or blocking a door isn't violent protest. Will they go to get arrested? Well, probably, maybe, but that doesn't mean they were violently assaulting anybody.
Exactly. And so you see like the thing is like, well, somebody will say like this violent protest needs to be condemned. It's like, oh, this wasn't actually a violent protest. And then the question is like, well, did they have a permit? What country are we living in? Like, do we have any pretense to living in a free country at all? What permit did they have for protesting our country's support of ethnic cleansing? They need a permit to go like that question. What permission do they have from the government to do this? How fucking far gone are we?
We've seen these same types of civil disobedience protests against the Trump administration, against Republicans, against people who try to control women's bodies with reproductive rights laws. This is the same thing that just even liberal activists have been taking part in against Republicans over the past couple of years, and they would be hailed as heroes for doing this sort of thing. Yet, because you have peace activists, Jewish peace activists, who dare to stand up for innocent Palestinians, you have them being called violent and how they need a permit. And yeah, it's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Look, I just got thrown. People getting thrown down the stairs. People getting thrown down the stairs. Yo.
Whose footage was that? Do we know? DMFI posted that and said it was a violent protest. DMFI, of course, basically like a part of the Israel lobby that's sort of more, as AIPAC is more of the conservative, J Street. What's DMFI's relationship to J Street? Is it a branch?
I'm not sure about the relation to J Street. It's definitely a subsidiary
the progressive
of AIPAC.
Right. Oh, it is actually related to AIPAC.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's the
Anyway, it's apartheid money.
But Matt, if you put this tweet up, this is where it's from, and this is what they said about this clip. Does any real Democrat want to side with those violently assaulting at the Democrats' headquarters?
75%.
These thugs have more in common with Markwayne Mullin, the Oklahoma senator, than with Democrats who won't be bullied into putting Hamas in position to launch more brutal attacks as they promised.
Oh, that's so funny. That is
really topical.
That's what's interesting to see. Like, there's a lot of Democratic partisans that are really trying to. And look, I like to support the Sean Fain stuff going on. Bernie Sanders even against Markwayne Mullin and the Teamster stuff going on, and I think that that's good. But like as a way to like not talk about what the Democratic Party is doing with regards to Israel right now, and yeah, that's and then Brad Sherman. Do we have him on TV?
Yeah.
But I mean, this lying asshole who if you look up marijuana bales, he thought that was it North Korea was going to smuggle a nuclear weapon in the United States in a bale of marijuana, which I do appreciate the object for imagination. That's a bale of marijuana. But anyway, here he is on CNN.
Some members of Congress had to be evacuated from the building. California Congressman Brad Sherman posted on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, that he was one of them, and he joins me now. Congressman, thanks for joining me. Can you tell us what happened when you were inside that building?
Well, we were gathered together to meet candidates from all over the country that will be our candidates in swing districts. Our leadership was there, but most of them had left, and there were many others there. We heard the demonstrators outside. They disrupted us a bit, and then we were told we were in lockdown and would not be allowed to leave. And then the police came in, the Capitol Police, who did an outstanding job, and evacuated us through the basement.
And you said that there were members of leadership there. Which members were there, and did they leave before the protesters turned violent?
Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar, our three top leaders, were all there. Of course, Susan Del Buene, the head of the DCCC, also one of our top leaders, was there at the when the evacuation took place.
We know that there were some arrests and the area is now open again. And Senator Schumer says there's going to be a vote tonight on the stopgap spending bill. How were you able to get out? And were you concerned at all for your safety as this was all going on?
I've been doing this for 27 years. I don't get that concerned. Some other of my colleagues were much more concerned. We were evacuated in police vehicles to the Capitol and then went home from there. The one point I want to make is yesterday there were over 200,000 pro-Israel demonstrators with a permit, entirely peaceful. And here you have a demonstration less than 1,000th as large that's also getting publicity. And it's getting publicity because their willingness to attack police, as they did with pepper spray, is a force multiplier. A few demonstrators willing to attack police getting a fair amount of publicity, whereas the amount of publicity for 200,000 peaceful demonstrators proportionately less.
And I just want to make a note here that we don't know exactly who was responsible for the pepper spray, but as we continue to report on this story, we'll learn more. Congressman Brad Sherman, I do thank you for joining us tonight.
I mean, we do know who's responsible for the pepper spray because there's tons of photos, evidence out there now that distinctly show police were spraying pepper spray. I mean, it should be a question who sprayed the pepper spray because police are the ones who bring pepper spray. Like we've seen the photos
bombing
of
the hospitals.
Police pepper spraying. If police are hit with pepper spray, it's because their own officers have bad aim and shot it, and it's blowback or it directly hit them. That's why. There's been no photos or videos of protesters with pepper spray, period. And then number two, the bringing up the permitted. First of all, it's been debunked about how many people were attended that the March for Israel protest. It wasn't 200,000 people.
Your eyes can debunk that.
It was less than 100,000 based on the photos. I've seen some people say 30,000 to 60,000 is the estimation.
Remember the existential panic that was caused when Trump misled everyone about the size of his crowd, despite the obvious, documentary evidence showing he's to be lying.
Right. I mean, also, if you look at the two photos of Trump's inauguration and the March for Israel side by side, Trump also had a larger audience. But
probably a lot of crossover.
Anyway, right. But anyway, the reason that the March for Israel went so swell is because exactly that. It was completely condoned by the U.S. government, various members of U.S. Congress who not only showed up but had speaking roles. It was literally a what is the current the pro status quo march.
Literally, the president of Israel was there.
Yeah, of course you're not going to be violent. They're not going to be violent. They're getting exactly what they want. No ceasefire. You have literally far right pastor who's said anti-Semitic and Islamophobic things previously as one of the speakers. He's getting exactly what he wants. I've seen video footage of, I think Medea Benjamin was there just holding up a sign for ceasefire.
Yep.
And you had attendees at this rally yelling that they wish Hamas raped her and burnt her and killed her and all these sorts of things. I mean, this is literally, it was a rally for the status quo. Of course, they're not going to be met with any blowback. Everything's going to be peaceful because there's no one attacking them.
Oh, wow. Paul Blessed. This is the first time I've seen significant media attention on Brad Sherman since a bunch of his staffers told a McClatchy reporter that his office was too toxic to report sexual harassment without fear of retaliation.
Yeah, he anecdotally in a lot of these surveys about the best and worst bosses on the Capitol Hill, he has consistently over his 27-year career been considered one of the worst people to work for on Capitol Hill. He's apparently has a huge anger problem and is very, very difficult to work for.
Fear and yelling in L.A. Congressman's office led to silence on harassment, aides say. Los Angeles area Congressman Brad Sherman says nothing of his staff ever complained about blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so big time piece of crap. 8 former aides said the environment in Sherman's D.C. and California offices was so toxic it was laughable to think of junior staff would have felt comfortable raising concerns about harassment or anything else.
And just to look at his tweets here for 1 second. So he initially obviously said the things where he was like, which Dave Weigel at Semaphore, who was at this
right. I forgot to mention Dave Weigel's been out there. Yeah,
he refuted this. So Sherman says here was just evacuated from the hashtag DNC after pro-terrorist hashtag Israel protesters grew violent.
Look, let's stop for a second there too. Look how he even classifies the protest:
pro-terrorist, anti-Israel.
Pro-terrorist, anti-Israel. I mean, come on.
And so he said, grew violent, pepper spraying police officers and attempting to break into the building, which Weigel refutes. Thankful to the police officers who stopped them and for helping me and my colleagues get out safely. In the next tweet, apparently these pro-Hamas demonstrators want Republicans to prevail in the next congressional election. It's still a vote shame after all.
Yeah, wow. Well, I mean, they don't want to describe them as Jewish students because they really have to do the work of like painting Israel as the one path towards supporting Jewish people domestically and abroad. So if you paint them as like if what they are, which is if not now, and Jewish Voices for Peace, you know, it conjures a different image than saying pro-terrorist organizers, because then you just picture like Arab people if you're a racist.
Right. I mean, it's quite clear that a lot of the people who are speaking out against what's going on right now in terms of a lot of people are speaking out against the protests demanding a ceasefire and such. A lot of these same politicians rarely stand with any other progressive cause. Sherman's not exactly someone who's been out there as a staunch defender of. Yeah. So, I mean, people need to realize when they're looking at this, and maybe they're not so a leftist or whatever, they should look at this and see who exactly is saying these things and where they stand on the issues you care about. And then maybe you could reevaluate your position on why so many of these people who are so adamantly anti the pro-Palestine cause don't care about any of the things that you care about.
One more segment.
Let's you want to do the this is going around, we should probably talk about it. You have that David Cross clip, right?
Oh yeah.
Cuz okay, so apparently a bunch of TikTok videos have gone viral. And they've gone viral because they are talking about Osama bin Laden's, I think it was 2002 letter to America, right, where he basically like wrote like a couple page screed about why he did 9/11, why he did what he did, what his issues were with the U.S. There's some conspiratorial content in there, obviously, some anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish commentary in there.
Jewish cabal controls the world sort of stuff, yeah.
Right. This is Osama bin Laden.
Right.
But Osama bin Laden, now you're canceled. That we discovered your letter to America, and now you're canceled. No, I mean, this is part of the course for anyone who's alive. But I mean, To understand the world, you have to sometimes read what these people that we consider to be odious think and what they believe, and their explanation for why they did what they did.
Sorry, Bender, but like what's happening here is, and I agree with Ben Shapiro about this actually, that there's been a collapse and an absolute failure in education, and a part of this comes from the mainstream media. So even when Washington Post is talking about this now, they'll point out the things that are actually absolutely objectionable, which is, like you said, the Jewish cabal stuff, and like that stuff, and also like I also emphasized by the Washington Post from that a longer letter is the stuff where it talks about like licentiousness and depravity and like Western sort of materialistic stuff like that, which is like, as an American, I kind of like my depravity and to a degree and freedom in that regard, right? And so like that stuff is always emphasized. It comes as a shock when you hear Bin Laden then move into criticizing America, which here's the actual like little key to this riddle is that America is a target-rich environment to criticize. Our shit is really fucked up. There's a lot of bullshit about it, particularly the way like corporations treat America. So like you can't actually find this one. I was looking for the Bin Laden letter from 2002. When you search for that now, you can't find that one because the Guardian pulled it down. You can find the one that he wrote after the Great Financial Crisis, which again has a lot of the same sort of this is a Jewish cabal stuff, but also includes like, hey, your government is throwing you out of houses and it's giving money to banks and stuff like that, right? Like, and these are the things that like when that's not emphasized by the Washington Post, because they'd rather say like, oh, these are fundamentalists that basically just think you are too pro-gay and too pro like ATV and stuff like that, and too pro Jewish people, like that is a shock to people because they have not been prepared for that. So this David Cross piece from 2004.
Well, we should just mention though, that a lot of these basically why this is in the news now is because a bunch of TikTokers have their videos have gone viral, basically where they discover the letter. And they're telling other people to view it. Now I haven't to read it. And now I haven't seen every single video out there. And I'm sure there's probably some that are stupid. But of the most viral ones I've seen, they're rather vague. Just like, oh, the reading the letter made them think differently. I mean, this is probably a generation that has been taught that the reason 9/11 happened is because people hated America for their freedoms. I mean, this sort of vague pro-America, America can do no wrong stance. And I mean, you need to understand everything. You need to understand the world in much more clearer definitions and ways than just certain people just decide they hate America. Yeah. This is not how it works. That doesn't mean they're right. Obviously, Osama bin Laden's a terrorist, not a good guy. Yeah. But you need to understand where these people are coming from, what their ideology is, if you wish to make a world where these stuff don't happen.
If you want to have a mature conversation about it, I mean, and we'll get into a little bit more of this, but I think the David Cross piece, I think, puts it well.
Yeah, let's run this.
And seriously, if the terrorists hated freedom, then the Netherlands would be fucking dust, as would Denmark and Sweden and Switzerland and New Zealand and Canada and every other country that's truly freer than we are. But that's true. And I don't think Osama bin Laden sent those planes in to attack us because he hated our freedom. I think he did it because of our support for Israel and our ties with the Saudi family and all our military bases in Saudi Arabia. You know why I think that? Because that's what he fucking said. Are we a nation of 6-year-olds? Answer, yes. God damn it. Why did the bad man put the plane in the building? Because he hated freedom. No, because I went to the Lexis database and there's over 1,400 articles that actually explain why. Shh, he hated freedom. Have a cookie. Have a cookie. Get him in the backyard. Show him the outdoor pool. All right.
I mean, spot on. I think I saw someone share that clip on Twitter with the added commentary that, for younger people who don't understand why so much so many, boomers and Gen Xers and even millennials of a certain age view comedians in a certain light. It's because during the early 2000s, they were like the only people who come out and say this sort of stuff. If you tried to do this if you tried to talk about this sort of thing without the overlying it's comedy, you were look at the Dixie Chicks. You were done. Your career over.
And you talked about, and this was discussed in, we discussed this, someone brought this up in an IM yesterday, as an example of that, Binder, too, like, Jeremy Glick, whose father died in 9/11, was on Bill O'Reilly discussing this exact thing, which was basically that part of the reason where a lot of this enmity and animosity from the Middle East towards the United States came from, which is, again, and as someone who went to like an affluent public school in New Jersey, even my American history course, my like ostensibly like liberal American history program that I was in, ended with Ronald Reagan. So I didn't learn about the arming of the Mujahideen during H.W. Bush's presidency against the USSR, then the breaking of the USSR and us completely parachuting out of there and leaving them high and dry. I learned about that on my own. I was not taught that in high school. So Jeremy Glick says this stuff to Bill O'Reilly, and of course, obviously, O'Reilly is a bellicose like piece of garbage, but he literally, his only response is, "Your parents would not be proud of you. Like, for how dare you say this Middle East propaganda on my airwaves?" Like he kicks him out of the studio. When they go to break, he literally gets security over and takes the guy out after they're ending their segment early. Like, you couldn't be a victim of the same terrorist attack talking about the antecedents to that terrorist attack on a news program without being told that you were ashamed to your own parents, the one who died in the terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Right. We really are. I mean, we really are a nation of 6-year-olds, though. David Cross is spot on. Like, the idea. Listen, if a bunch of Gen Z kids are reading Bin Laden's letter to America and not understanding the full context and what you should actually be getting out of it, and they're falling down a different path, then they need an education. They need to understand and learn. You don't censor it. You don't take it away. It's the same reason why Mein Kampf is printed by major publishing houses. It's not like this is some like VDare distributed publication. There's a reason. I mean, I remember in school it was on reading lists. People need to understand history and how certain even odious figures came to be. The idea that this is promotional of it, which sort of makes the whole I think like a lot of people. I remember when it came out that like Trump had a copy of Mein Kampf in his his dresser drawer or something.
He had a copy of Trump's. He had a copy of Hitler's speeches.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Hmm.
But even that, like the odious part of that isn't that someone would have this in their library. The weird part about that is he had it at his bedside table. Like,
and clearly is influenced by it. Like, I mean,
and that part too, right? But of course, like we just saw how the IDF trotted out a copy of Mein Kampf to explain that, like, this is Nazi paraphernalia being read by the Nazi terrorists or whatever. We found it in a kid's bedroom too, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, this has been the entirety of I remember the first controversy over Israel and anti-Semitism was this John Mearsheimer book, actually here, The Israel Lobby, and Tony Jute, Judt, and Norm Finkelstein both have critiques of this that you can read in Finkelstein's Knowing Too Much and Tony Jute in his essay collection from 1995 to 2005, but the book was smeared and reacted to like in an extremely hysterical way, calling it anti-Semitic. It overstates Israel's role maybe in like our decision to go to war with Iraq particularly. But this particular bit on Bin Laden, I was reminded of. There's no convincing evidence. So basically, Israel wanted us to think two contradictory things with regards to the 9/11 attacks. One, that Bin Laden had ties to Palestinian groups, and two, that our support for Israel had nothing to do with the attacks, which again doesn't make sense. But here's Mearsheimer's treatment of it. There's no convincing evidence linking Osama bin Laden and his inner circle to the various Palestinian terrorist groups, and most Palestinian terrorists do not share al-Qaeda's desire to launch a global Islamic restoration or restore the caliphate. In fact, the PLO was secular and nationalist, not Islamist, and it is only in the last decade or so, this is written in like 2006, in the last decade or so, as the occupation has ground on, that many Palestinians have become more attracted to Islamist ideas. Nor are their activities, however heinous and deplorable, simply random violence directed against Israel or the West. Instead, Palestinian terrorism has always been directed solely at their perceived grievances against Israel, beginning with resistance to the original Zionist influx and continuing after the expulsion of much of the Palestinian population in the 1948 war. Today, these actions are largely responsible for Israel's prolonged campaign to colonize the West Bank and Gaza Strip as a reflection of the Palestinians' own weakness. These territories contained few Jews when Israel captured them in 1967, but Israel spent the next 40 years colonizing them with settlements, road networks, and military bases while brutally suppressing Palestinian attempts to resist these encroachments. Not surprisingly, Palestinian resistance has frequently employed terrorism, which is usually how subject populations strike back at powerful occupiers. And while groups like Hamas have yet to publicly accept Israel's existence, we should not forget that Yasser Arafat and the rest of the PLO did, and that the president Mahmoud Abbas, let me pull that up a little bit. Mahmoud Abbas has reiterated the commitment on numerous occasions. And then go to the next one. Maybe that's a bit too much. Yeah, that's too much reading. But you get, you can check my Twitter for the bit about. Not like this wasn't explicitly mentioned, despite being downplayed by Israel. That was one of Osama bin Laden's grievances, and they said he didn't come by it honestly, and he just tacked it on at the end to justify it. And what that grants is that it was a big fat opportunity for a terrorist to justify himself, and maybe we should address that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that you can point to Gen Z having never read that specific letter, but they're not the most, they're not the only susceptible part of our population to propaganda. Boomers have been radicalized by Facebook memes for the past, 10, 15 years now. And the only difference, I think, is their material conditions lead them to subscribe to more Americo-friendly conspiracy theories like QAnon that still describe a waning American sort of hegemony, but blames a more internal threat of minorities and deep state operatives. And he doesn't have any kind of, anti-statist in the holistic sense, like anti-America tinge to it. It's very just, anti-modern America, because they grew up in a time where they could imagine that they might be successful, and they're only now noticing things are going, in a different way.
Yeah. I'll just read a little bit.
But it's all due to like a similar lack of engagement with it.
Sorry, go ahead. Are you on delay, Brandon?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Go finish your point.
I was just going to say, no, I think generally Americans are detethered from their history, which makes it very difficult for them to resist propaganda from all sources.
Right. I mean, literally, like freedom as a placeholder for actually knowing about history. And just to give a little bit more of that history from Mearsheimer, contrary to the claims, there is in fact abundant evidence that U.S. support for Israel encourages anti-Americanism throughout the Arab and Islamic world and has fueled rage of anti-American terrorists. It is not their only grievance, of course, but is a central one. While some Islamic radicals are genuinely upset by what they regard as a West materialism and venality, its alleged theft of Arab oil, its support for corrupt Arab monarchies, its repeated military interventions in the region, they're also angered by U.S. support for Israel and Israel's harsh treatments of the Palestinians. Thus, Saeed Qutb, the Egyptian dissident whose writings have been an important inspiration for contemporary Islamic fundamentalists, was hostile to the United States both because he saw it as a corrupt and licentious society and also because of U.S. support for Israel. Or Saeed Mohammed Hussein Fadlallah, spiritual leader of Hezbollah, put in 2002, I believe that America bears responsibility for all of Israel, both in its occupation of the lands of 1948 or in all of its settlement policies in the lands occupied since 1967. And so let's maybe, as opposed to like declaring this entire new generation discovering this stuff terrorists, maybe let's have an adult conversation of like, is our policy and our policy choices over the last 75 years, or at least since 67, is that worth it for provoking terrorism? Because it does provoke terrorism. We need to be adult about that word too. Like we can admit that Hamas provoked the response that Israel is doing in Gaza right now without saying it's justified or moral. It's a war crime. But this is provoking terrorism against us.
Counterpoint, Matt. Gen Z are a bunch of terrorists.
Okay. It reminds me of like listening about the Great Awakening versus the Salem witch trials, and like basically like the difference between an awakening, a religious revival, and the fear that everyone's turning into witches. is how the elites interpret it. Because a lot of the Great Awakening, there's like speaking in tongues, a lot of things that would scare people. And instead, in like when we had the Great Awakening here, the clergy and all the religious leaders were like, okay, we're going to accept this energy and actually channel it into revitalize the church, or you can just start killing people because they're witches. Which way are we going to go?
All right. So do we? What time is it? Do we have? Do you want to? You guys want?
Probably wrap up unless you have another thing you want to discuss.
What's on the sheet? We want to do one more sound? I don't think we watch too many videos. That's the problem.
Yeah, the only thing I think would be we could watch is if we wanted to watch Markwayne Mullin's appearance on Sean Hannity to talk about their fight.
Is it funny?
I think it's funny because Hannity talks about how when he was younger he used to always get the scraps, which like.
Oh, I definitely want to listen to this now. Let's end on this. So nice. Let's lighten. I know it's been. It's been rough just covering all this stuff. I could, and this is the least of the worries out there, obviously. But it's been. Let's end on a lighter note.
A little Markwayne to clearing the palate.
Yes, thank you, Brendan.
One word.
The way you put that.
But yeah, so after he stood up and took his ring off and almost tried to fight the Teamsters leader, Sean O'Brien, in a Senate committee hearing, Markwayne Mullin made the rounds and talked to Hannity about his perspective on the altercation. And Hannity also brought his perspective on the altercation because he was like, since when can we not settle things with fisticuffs?
All right, let's take it to the video of Markwayne Mullin and Sean Hannity talking about their schoolyard fighting days.
And you should have seen the fear of his eyes when I stood up too. I'm not joking. I'm not looking for a fight. I used to get paid to fight.
He did not look afraid. He did not look afraid. No.
Oh, you gotta go back. I was not expecting it to start like that. Oh my God!
He was terrified.
He said he wanted to bring a mob mentality back to the Teamsters. Maybe that's true, but you still aren't going to run your mouth at me and expect me to just sit there. And you should have seen the fear of his eyes when I stood up too. I'm not joking. I'm not looking for a fight. I used to get paid to fight professionally. I'm not really looking for it, but I'm sure not going to sit back and let somebody do that and not call them out on it.
Well, let me tell you, I love these people on social media. I call them the keyboard warriors, usually in their basement, basement bunkers, in their underwear, and they're all tough on social media. Then you call them out on it. They're not so tough. It is interesting, though, when you think of the left today, if you use the wrong pronoun in school, boy, the left will absolutely lose it.
Right.
No. When I grew up, it was a little bit of a different time. When me and my friends, when we played football, when we played basketball, I played hockey. I don't think there was a single day that we were playing sports where we didn't drop the gloves or, have a brief interlude of, throwing fists and it'd be over. You pick up and you start playing again. When all of a sudden did we?
Look, I don't know if you guys.
We beat the shit out of each other every single day.
I played sports, whether it was football season or basketball, a little bit of baseball, but often it was football or basketball. I remember most of the fights that I had out of that. It wasn't every single day. It was there's maybe a dozen times, and I remember calling one of my best friends basically a homophobic word that starts with C, compound word CS, and I really regret that to this day and feel bad about it. So yeah,
it's like a distinct memory, not these nebulous.
Exactly.
We fought every day. I can't remember the specifics.
Well, I had to look this up because he says he would get paid to professionally fight.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and Markwayne Mullin claims to be a former MMA fighter. But I'm looking into this, and according to the details here, he fought in 3 fights. He did win all 3, but this is back in 2006 and 2007. His total fight time was less than 10 minutes, and he fought a total of less than 3 full rounds. And the organization he fought for was called XFL, Extreme Fighting League, and they
other
on their
XFL.
own. On their own, not for the football one that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson now owns. This is a small Oklahoma-based MMA organization. They run apparently out of a casino in Oklahoma, and they call themselves an amateur MMA promotion for those who have less than a year of training experience.
Okay, so like street beefs. He fought with he fought on street beefs.
Like literally the most amateurish outfit imaginable.
I mean, my son has taken Taekwondo longer than apparently Markwayne Mullin needed to, and my son's 8. Markwayne Mullin only needed to train for less than a year to fight in the Extreme Fight League. My son has been doing Taekwondo for much longer than that.
Binder's son would put Markwayne Mullin to sleep, I think.
I think you would.
Coquina clutch.
A brief interlude of, throwing fists, and it'd be over. You pick up and you start playing again. When all of a sudden did we become that woke that the thought of two people, one responding to a threat directly saying, okay, you threatened me, here's your opportunity, take me up on it?
Yeah, well, it's political correctness. It's all of a sudden you got to worry about somebody's feelings, but oh, by the way, the left can say whatever they want. And it's not personal to me. I'm not mad at this guy. I mean, he said it. I'm just answering the call. That's it. If he wants to go out afterwards and have a cup of coffee, let's go have a cup of coffee. I'm friends with a lot of guys that I used to fight. Unfortunately, I grew up in the country of Oklahoma. You did the same thing that you did when you grew up, and you settled your issues and you went on with it, and there was no hard feelings by it. Well, a few times there's hard feelings, especially if you won, but if you lost, you just kind of took your lickings and you learned from it, right? And this guy, I just don't think that he was expecting me to answer the call. And we need more of this, to be quite frank. I'm not saying more violence, but we need more people to be taught a lesson and be called out on what they say. You got to be responsible for the words.
The way I read
Wait, but why is he talking? Pause for a second. Why is he talking like something came out of that confrontation other than Markwayne Mullin looking like a fucking idiot? Like what's his name again? The Teamster?
Sean O'Brien.
Sean O'Brien. Yeah. He stood up. Like the video didn't catch it, but when it cuts back out, you could see him sitting back down. He stood up. He wasn't afraid of Markwayne Mullin. There was no lesson learned from Sean O'Brien. In fact, there's other clips of Sean O'Brien literally mocking other Republican senators who are nagging at him. Have you guys seen that clip?
That was Mullin. He was responding to Mullin talking.
Oh, he was. I mean, there was no lesson. If anything, it fired him up even more.
Yeah, no. When Mullin has that, when O'Brien has a clip where he's like, what? Like, he's just goading him. He's literally just baiting him. He's just completely baiting him. Like, this guy's not an idiot.
There's no way if Markwayne Mullin thinks the rest of the world, or at least the vast majority of people in this country looked at that and didn't think he at least looked like a freaking dork, then I don't know where his mindset's at.
I also like that it was downgraded to coffee. It was like, we're going to actually fight in the halls of the Senate, and now we can just get coffee instead. That's fine.
Was there more to play?
Yeah, we did.
On what they say. You got to be responsible for the words.
The way I read his tweet to you is he called you out. He's the one that said he wanted this exchange, and all you were doing is saying, okay, tough guy, let's go.
That's right.
I think any other response kind of would have been a little gutless.
I would agree with that. I mean, what do people want me to do? If I didn't do that, people in Oklahoma would be pretty upset at me. That's not how we raise. I'm supposed to represent Oklahoma values.
I think that actually is probably true. And I think people in Oklahoma, again, I'm going to predict that your approval ratings are probably going to go higher.
That's basically it.
I love the fact that he still thinks he came across like a tough guy when he basically sat back down because an 80-plus-year-old senator from Vermont told him to cut it off. Like Bernie told him to sit down. Bernie Sanders told him to sit down, and he just said, okay, and he sat back down. And then Bernie Sanders told him to shut up and to act like a senator, and he was just like, he listened to it. I don't know why he keeps talking like he came across like a tough guy. And also, O'Brien was smart for telling him to stand up first, because if he stood up first, he would have looked like the one who was wrong. Markwayne Mullin fell for every single thing the entire way. He was goaded into looking like an idiot.
And just very briefly, Mullin, when he made the rounds on the news outlets, he was on Newsmax, he was on Fox. He also appeared on this Oklahoman named Kyle Thompson's podcast called Undaunted Life, a man's podcast. And in this brief clip, he also describes his fighting style. So I'll just put this up in 1 second.
Oh, we got
That's a great
his
podcast
fighting
name.
style. What is it? Is it slap fighting or something? What do we got here? Let's listen.
Why you should train jujitsu is because even if you lose a fight, you want to make sure the other guy will never want to fight you ever again,
Absolutely.
because it's kind of a win-win at that point. But
Yeah.
we need to move from an almost
And by the
fight.
way, I'm not afraid of biting. I will bite.
Biting? Well, I mean,
Yeah, I'm in a fight. I'm going to bite. I'll do anything. I mean, I'm not above it, and I don't care where I bite. By the way, it just is going to be a bite.
I'm not even going to ask any
Normal.
further
What a
questions on
normal
that. I
guy.
think that basically
Okay.
speaks for itself.
This is obviously a well-trained
speak for itself.
MMA fighter who says they'll resort to biting. Dude
Anywhere.
obviously has
Anywhere
lots
on
of
the body, he'll
experience.
bite. Anywhere
Yeah,
on
he
the
has a-
body, he'll bite. It doesn't
anywhere on
matter
the
where.
body, yeah. he obviously has a lot of experience in real, legitimate MMA fighting. That he would do that. He would resort to biting in a fight.
I also like that was unprovoked by the podcast host. He was trying to segue, and he was like, "I would bite somebody." To be clear, Kyle, I would bite somebody.
Just really amazing. Oh my God. Well, just when you thought you've heard it all, you I mean, I thought the original with him standing up was bad, and then the Sean Hannity clip is even funnier, and then you present me with this.
You have to go all the way to
Could you imagine
Undaunted
if he-
Life, a man's podcast for that.
Could you imagine if he bit that guy in the Senate? That would have been hilarious.
That would have been actually, yeah.
I think Bernie should have let him fight.
Yeah, it's disappointing that Bernie didn't. I would have loved to see
Bernie
it.
denied us content. He won't come out against Israeli aggression. Like he's really not,
One
living up
situation
to-
you want him to call ceasefire, the other time you want him to let the conflict continue. Yeah.
And he's just wrong on every, yeah.
It's like he flips a coin.
It would have been funny because also I do think Markwayne Mullin's MMA fighting skills would show that they're around 20 years old and that he can't even do that. Right.
One of the only people he beat went like 1-11. So it's not as though he was facing like real high level talent.
Oh yeah, he fought the same guy twice too. So it's not like he
Yeah.
defeated 3 separate people either. He defeated the same guy twice. I'm looking at his MMA history on SureDog right now. Are you looking at the same thing?
Yeah, no, I can't wait to find those fights online and watch them.
I hope they're online.
I can only imagine they place like the Oklahoma State Fair and there's just like pigs in the background and there's just like a bunch of like hay they're rolling around in. Mark Wayne's biting people.
Right. It's like when it's the like him claiming to be an MMA fighter is the equivalent of like for wrestling fans out there, you go to an autograph signing because they say Doink the Clown is going to be there, and you find out it's a guy who played Doink the Clown on the Indies 30 years after the original Doink the Clown died.
I just wonder
you know
if
what I'm talking about, Bradley?
Of course.
I just wonder if being bit by Mark Wayne is like being bit by like a vampire or a werewolf and you get like a second first name. Like after he bites you, like you find your birth certificate just has a second first name on it.
Oh man, this was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did this clip. All right, I guess that's it. Well, we didn't do the usual plugs at the beginning because we just had a fun half. So let's do it now, folks. I did a call-in show at my this past Tuesday at youtube.com/Mapbender. Definitely go check it out. More episodes of Doomed and Scam Economy are on the way. Leftist Mafia will be tonight at 8:30, same place, youtube.com/Mapbender. Brandon, what's happening on the discourse?
We should have an episode for you out this weekend. We're going to record tomorrow, so on the way as well.
And Matt Leck, what's going on Left Reckoning?
Yeah, Tuesday night we did a segment on actually this Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro stuff, basically getting into the degree to which Candace Owens doesn't understand really at all, even to use it cynically, the distinction between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism, and upset. And we get into maybe can't quite count on her as being and maybe shouldn't emphasize her as a champion of the Palestinian cause. But patreon.com/Left Reckoning, or check that out. It's on YouTube. Oh yeah, subscribe to us on YouTube. We're like a few hundred away from 30,000 subscribers.
There you go. And Bradley, did you guys get in an ESVN before Emma apparently was stuck in a restroom for.
Well, we had one on Monday prior to Emma being on the injured reserve today. So we had a good Monday episode wrapping up the NFL Week 10 action, and we also discussed the Edmonton Oilers in the NHL in free fall currently. We will probably just put out our picks for the Week 11 NFL action either on our Twitter account or just post it somewhere because Emma's out of commission for today. So YouTube.com/ESPN show for our Monday show and for clips if you want to catch up, and we will definitely be out with our picks either today or tomorrow.
All right, there we go. That's the show. Emma, feel better. Sam will be here tomorrow for Friday's show, and take care, everyone.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the Nets are gonna kick in. And my